Let's have a look. Sweet. Let's just double check that we're all ready and going. Three. Sweet. I reckon we're live now, mate. So, g'day guys. I'm Kyle Gardyne from PGW Seeds, and today I'm joined by Cam Neeld from Fonterra Farmsource. G'day, mate. How you going?
Hey, Kyle. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So today, guys, we're just continuing our sort of merchant rep series where we're just catching up with one of the local merchants. Today we've got Cam here joined here, and we're just going to talk about sort of 2 or 3 key topics that we're getting a few questions on. And so, Cam, I thought we'd just kick straight into it. We've sort of got 15 odd minutes. How is COVID-19, the coronavirus, sort of affecting your business, and how do farmers access information and help and products from you guys?
Yeah, good question, Kyle. Like, fortunately, our business, is the other rural merchants are as well, as deemed essential to support our farmers, which are obviously supplying an essential food to the nation. So we're privileged in the fact that we can do that, but obviously we've got limitations as well. So for our day-to-day shopping network for our farmers, the easiest way for us to move forward with this is to do online sales and phone sales, so that we get less people contact. We can't have the people contact, so the stores can't be open as they once were. So nowadays, you'd put in for an order, you'd organise what you actually need, and then you'd call into the store, open the boot, and staff would come out, load the boot up, and you'd be on your way without any of that contact. And that's probably the way that we'll have to work while this lockdown is in process. But we do have flexibility in the fact that we've still got our field reps are still mobile for essential services. And I suppose you then ask the question, well, what's essential? And I suppose for our farmers that are on this, if you believe it's essential, it's probably because it is. We can get out there. We can do deliveries and stuff like that, as long as there's no contact. We have to go out solo, so unfortunately I can't have Kyle come out with me, and I can't have a farmer in my vehicle. So we come out. We can drop the gear off in your tanker loop or out by your implement sheds and stuff, and we can still come out on farm, do some crop checks. We can look at new pastures. We can do all kinds of things like that, but as long as we obey that 2-metre exclusion zone and we're not touching gateways and stuff like that. So the gates need to be open and little things like that we just need to have a bit more foresight about. But the easiest thing for all our farmers to do is just ring us, have a chat, and we can actually put a plan in place to service them.
Awesome. And I guess from a rice and seeds perspective, seed is obviously classed as an essential service as well. So seed is still definitely flowing north from Christchurch to the Waikato. Just keep in touch with your local merchants regarding seed supply and things like that. There are a couple of annual products that are running a little low, but from a perennial point of view, everything is in good supply. But with the COVID-19, things are slowing down just a little. So just bear in mind that there might be an extra day or two in terms of deliveries. Main reason for that is just less freight going south means less trucks coming north. So we are finding it a little bit difficult to get trucks booked to take seed north. So just be a little bit patient with us. But yeah, good summary there, Cam. Another topic we just had to talk around was just under-sowing and how we tackle that in terms of the lack of contact and things around farm visits and things. So do you have anything to sort of suggest to farmers?
Yeah, look, I think for us and what we do there, Kyle, look, paddock scoring is obviously key on where we need to go and have a look at where we need to be under-sowing and assessing those paddocks, which can be done by photos. You can take a photo on your smartphone and send it through to us or to you. Or we can actually come out and check those paddocks if you're not sure on how to do it yourself. We can talk you through stuff like that. But the key is to actually identify them early and get them addressed early rather than sit back and wait for the lockdown to finish. I think that could be a mistake there. Just back to what you were saying before though, Kyle, just with seed supply, because obviously there's some frustration here at the moment. It's pretty much strictly just logistics now though, isn't it? Most of your key perennial lines that we like to grab out are actually in full supply, aren't they?
That's right. And in all honesty, like this week's probably been one of our biggest weeks. We've definitely pumped out a lot of seed. Things are dressed, treated, bagged up and ready to go. So we have got a lot out there that, it's taken a wee while just in terms of logistics, but things are getting right now. Awesome. So just back to the pasture condition scoring. I guess you might have a question like, what is worthwhile under-sowing? And the key thing that we try and get farmers to do is identify paddocks from a 1 to 5 scale. Very much like you condition score a cow, we like to condition score paddocks, 5 being a new grass, a very good looking paddock, and 1 pretty much being, non-existent, less than 10% of the pasture there and visible. So what I like to do is try and visualize a metre square that represents the paddock, and then just within that square, try and work out whether there's 10, 15, 20, 50% of the pasture there. And a paddock that's scoring around a 3 probably has around 50 to 60% of the pasture, ryegrass component still there. And that would be something that I would definitely consider under-sowing. So anything that's scoring a 1, 2, and 3, definitely want to try and fill that space up, because there is obviously major yield losses, but all of a sudden if you've got an open pasture, you're just allowing winter weeds to fill up that space and reduce quality and overall reduce yield in those paddocks.
I think that's the key, Kyle, because so many times we look at a pasture and I know with our dairy farmers, and they'll look at it and they'll assess it at being at 3,000 or 3,500 cover, and they'll have a feed budget that they're going to harvest 1.5 to 2 tonne per hectare off that paddock.
Yep.
But if we're only 50% of that being ryegrass, we've just halved our yield, and yet our feed budget is now going to fall well short. And that's where we're going to have some really issues coming through winter and into early spring if we haven't actually addressed that and bolstered those ryegrass populations up.
Definitely, and I think like the majority of the country, probably bar Southlands, had a pretty dry season. So definitely pastures are looking a little bit worse for wear and are reasonably open. So definitely, if you need some help and guidance, just give your local rep or seed rep a ring, and they can either talk you through it, flick you through some tech notes around pasture condition scoring, and just get out there and make sure that your pastures are going into winter in a good state, because I guess it's so important after a dry season to get our covers up pre-drying off so that we're in a good situation for wintering, calving, and then also, early lactation from a dairy point of view anyway. You went out this morning and took a soil temperature, mate. How are we looking?
We did, Kyle. We're actually doing some crop assessments then, some ryegrass open pastures, and just assessing for under-sowing. So we took the soil test. 17.8 degrees we had, which is a drop of about 2 degrees over the last sort of week. And so it's definitely starting to cool down. How cold would it go before you'd have real concerns about planting perennials, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, it is just a rule of thumb, but around 14 degrees or less, we're thinking that it wouldn't be ideal for perennials. So based on your soil temperature there, and I think our farm at the St. Peter's Dairy Farm was just under 20 on Tuesday. So still reasonably high soil temperatures at the moment. So there definitely are a couple of weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks left of perennial under-sowing or new grass sowing. And then, it'd probably be ideal to switch into winter active cereals or, annual ryegrass, Italian ryegrass, and getting those sort of under-sown paddocks filled up with options like that.
What do you see as a detrimental effect if we're sowing those perennial ryegrasses into cooler soils? So if we're going down around that 14 degrees, what are we likely to see there, or how should we best manage that?
I mean, just due to the fact that we've got a slower establishment speed with perennials compared to annuals and Italians, it is going to take a lot longer to get to our first graze. And so your cover accumulation is a lot less. But also, because it is so slow, there's the potential for it to get out-competed by weeds. And if you just pick on one in particular, like chickweed, chickweed is a winter-active weed that can grow quite fast. And so the slower the establishing the grass, the more vulnerable it is to weeds. And at the same point, it's less robust to stand up to a winter grazing. So if we do have big, heavy cows grazing in soft soils, and you don't have a well-anchored plant with a good root system, it's going to be less able to sort of withstand that heavier grazing during that cooler winter time.
Yeah, I think the thing there, Kyle, is you're right. It's if we're planting a perennial ryegrass into a cooler soil, we have to think a little bit further forward and be managing quite carefully with that grass over the winter period, and looking at putting in those essential early grass weed control programs.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess like this year in particular, from a sales point of view, we've had a lot of annuals sold, like an extremely high amount. And I guess that is representative of just, some tired pastures that need filling up, and choosing a winter active ryegrass that accumulates dry matter quickly. But at the same time, we don't want too much annuals on our platform, because if we have too many annuals, then we're going to have a lot of spring crop to fill in those paddocks. So it is good just to manage probably no more than 10-15% of your platform in annuals, because then that's another 10-15% of summer crop we're going to have to sow into in spring. So yeah, the key thing, I guess, is just to do a bit of a feed budget, work out where you're heading with your spring crop, get your annuals sorted, and then partition the rest of the farm into maybe a longer lived Italian or a perennial.
Yeah, I think one of the keys with that annual is, if we've got a pasture that's severely run out and we don't put an annual in, we're going to end up with nothing over winter, and probably nothing over summer as well. So though it looks like you're putting more summer cropping in, it's probably worth biting that bullet. But an alternative to that is going into an Italian, like an end-of-fighted Italian, and that'll actually give you the flexibility to look at either 1 to 2 years before you actually crop that out. So that could actually just defer that issue out another year and actually become like an annual type program for the following year.
That's a really good point, actually. Like a product like a Lush AR37 that has an 18 to 24 month window in terms of how long it does last. That can defer that paddock for another 12 months compared to an annual. So it's a really good point, actually. And at the same time, it is almost just like a band-aid you can put on that paddock for a short period of time. That is going to last at least a summer long, and then renew that paddock in the following spring. But I guess the key point is just, make sure that you're not putting too much of your farm into a short-term pasture.
Because just on that, Kyle, I know both of us have been out on farm together and had these conversations with our farmers, but it might be quite good for the people watching now. Just what does actually happen to an annual at the end of what we call an annual period, which isn't 12 months. We're only looking at 5 months. What's likely to happen? Can they leave it in for the summer?
It's a really good point, and I reckon they're fairly poorly named. In cooler environments with lots of summer rainfall, you can probably get an annual ryegrass last an annual period, so 12 months. But anywhere in the upper North Island where we get pretty gnarly summer dry periods, an annual ryegrass really is only going to last probably middle November. Maybe some of the longer ones might scrape through into December. But without any of that summer rainfall, those annual ryegrasses are going to go to seed and then die. And so then you're just left with an open pasture in December that we can't plant anything into for 3 to 4 months before moisture returns. So it's really important to note that when we're planting annuals, they're really only designed for 6 to 9 months in the upper North Island anyway. And that's why I always assume that annual pasture has to go into a summer crop or a winter crop, a spring planted crop anyway, where we need to do something with it.
And of course, the upper North Island is, as we all know, is a magnet for black beetle, stem weevil type pressures, which favourite feed is our annuals, isn't it? So we don't have it around into the summer. Without
that end of fight, you're exactly right. The black beetle and Argentine stem weevil are definitely going to take into it. So just on to insects, good little segue. Slugs certainly getting more and more talked about. What do you think the slug numbers are going to do this year, Cam?
Pretty dry up here still. We've had some rainfall and it is very hot. So slug numbers we don't expect to be very high, but then we do have to be wary that as soon as we get rainfall, their numbers will explode in population size. It doesn't take many slugs to do a lot of damage, so it's a bit of a wary thing. Like we are suggesting people putting sacks and boards out and having a look after a couple of days at what's under those. What kind of numbers do you sort of react to in regards to that, Kyle?
So I was on the phone to a slug expert this morning, actually, just to double check the thinking, but around 2 to 3 slugs, Paul Edison was suggesting for a new pasture. So if we've got a slug mat out or a board out, and we just imagine again like a ½ metre square, if we're finding around sort of 2 to 3 slugs under those mats and boards, then we're going to potentially have a significant problem that's worth treating. The reason only 2 to 3 being such a low number, when we've got a paddock that only has new grass, new clover in it, then that's all they can possibly eat. So they can do some fairly significant damage. On the flip side, when we jump into under-sowing pasture, we're probably only looking at 4 to 5 slugs per square metre, so probably double that of what we're looking at in new grass. And that's purely for the fact that there's a lot more established grass that the slugs can eat, clover obviously, and then weeds in general. Slugs do like to eat too, so not really. There doesn't seem to be a lot of slug bait going to under-sown situations. But if we do have an inkling that slugs are going to be a problem, we monitor those, and we find that there's a good 4 to 5 slugs in that ½ metre square, then we're probably well worth getting some slug bait on. So,
well, it's cheap insurance.
Very cheap insurance. I mean, slug damage can take out entire paddocks, and then you've got the whole seed cost, contracting cost, and lost feed coming into it. So it can be quite an expensive bill doing nothing. But it's just one of those things that the dry conditions certainly will help suppress numbers, but get out there and monitor, chuck a couple sacks out. It's a pretty easy, cheap way to see if we actually need to do something.
Yeah, well, a wise man once told me, a slug is a mollusk, not an insect, but they're not an apex predator.
Yeah.
So if you've got a drill row going through where you've undersown, and they find that drill row, they'll sit within the drill row and take the whole line out. So, it is imperative to get the bait in front of them if they're going to be an issue.
Yeah. And just another tip as well. I mean, clover is a preferred forage for clovers. So at the end of the day, if you start to see your clovers disappearing and you see that slug damage, then there probably is a high likelihood that you do have an issue and you do need to get it in there and treat.
Yeah.
Cool. Just a couple of questions just to finish off. We sort of did cover off the perennial question. Is it too late to put perennials in? And look, sort of just in summary, we've got sort of 2 to 3 weeks that we still need to get that sorted. And then the next question was perennials versus annuals. We did nail that one reasonably well. And then the other one, I guess, was just sowing rates, diploids and tetraploids. Cam. What's the difference there?
Well, I think the main thing is, if we're talking about undersowing still as well there, Kyle, or?
Yeah, from an undersowing point of view, we could probably dive into full rate right if we need to.
So if we're talking undersowing, I think the key here is, as you were saying before, the paddock screening, if you've got 50% of it still in ryegrass pasture, then that's where we go on those numbers with your diploids at about 12 to 15 kgs undersown, and our tetraploids like your lash at 20 kgs. But if we're down at only 20% population left, that'll still be very open pasture, and you need to almost go to a full sward. So that's where we start lifting right up to 20 plus kgs. And it is a key to do that, because what we're worried about here isn't the cost of the seed so much, it's the cost of the loss of feed in front of us. So it has to be a plant to grow the feed. If we don't have the plant, we don't have the feed. So what we're really key on here is chasing the actual feed.
Perfect. Awesome, guys. Just in summary, feel free to chuck some questions in the comments below, and we can come back and retrospectively answer those. If you need anything immediately, just contact your local retailer if you have their numbers, and if you're keen on some seed advice, just give us a ring on our 0800 number, which is easily found on our Facebook page too. So thanks for tuning in. Like I said, just drop us a like or a share, and any comments or questions below. Awesome. Cheers, guys. Thanks heaps. See ya.
Thanks.